Hi, I'm Lindsay from Fluent TOEFL. In this mini course, we are going to focus on the speaking section of the TOEFL. By the end of this video, you will be able to speak with confidence and answer each question of the speaking section on the TOEFL. There are 4 tasks, 4 questions on the speaking section. In this course, I will teach you how to take notes for each task, how to organize your notes for each task, and most importantly, how to answer each question. We will go over structure, pronunciation, templates, and I will give you lots of example answers, and I will give you example notes that I took when I was giving those example answers. This is divided into 4 sections, 1 for each task. So you can do this section by section, or you can do it in one sitting. No matter what pace you choose, be sure to download the study guide in the pinned comments below. I'm hopeful that this is going to be super helpful for you, and I'm looking forward to hearing back from you in the comments. So today you're going to learn the structure of speaking task 1. You're going to listen and analyze example answers from me, and you're going to practice clear pronunciation. Let's get started. All about task 1. It's called the independent question. It is the only independent question on the speaking. What does independent mean? It means alone, separate, which in this case means you don't have to read and listen to a lecture. You're just answering a question. It's usually about your opinion or your preference. And this is a very quick question. You only have 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to speak. 15 seconds goes by like that. So take notes, but take very quick notes. And remember that this is about your opinion or your preference. So be casual. You can be a little bit informal. You are not writing and then reading an essay. It doesn't need to be incredibly structured like that. And you do need to give a specific reason and or an example. You can do both a reason and an example, or you'll see that sometimes you just get right into the examples or get right into the reasons. But either way, you need to be very specific in your reasoning, partially because that is what they are testing you on. They want you to answer the question fully. And if you don't do this, you're not going to use the full 45 seconds. You're going to have a lot of blank space in there, and we don't want that. Okay, how to take notes. So you only have 15 seconds, so we're going to do the Mickey Mouse. This is the Mickey Mouse. You can put your answer in the big circle and then 2 reasons in the little circles, or a reason and an example in the little circle. A lot of people don't want to take notes because they only have 15 seconds. I find through experience it does help. I do recommend taking really quick notes, and I'll show you my notes for each answer today. We're going to do 3 questions so that you can see how I use the Mickey Mouse. Okay, we're going to do this together. Talk about a purchase you've made that you are happy with. Describe what you purchased and explain why you are happy. So normally this would come up, you would hear this question and you would see it. And then there would be a 15-second timer for preparation and a 45-second timer to speak. You'll hear the beeps. But because we're doing this as practice and this is our first one, we're going to leave out the timer for now and go slowly through the question. Pay attention to the grammar in this question. Talk about a purchase you have made that you are happy with. It doesn't say talk about purchases you make. It's not using the present simple because they are not asking about something you do often. Remember, we use the present simple for things I do often. I drink coffee in the morning. But they are asking you for a purchase you have made. So some specific past experience. It's important that you answer the question fully. So you need to understand exactly what they're asking. They're asking for you to talk about a purchase you have made, what you purchased, and why you are happy about it. So in my answer that I'm going to give you in a second, it's important that I hit all of those points. I answer all of those parts of the question. Here's an example of my Mickey Mouse. I'm going to talk about buying an air fryer, and my reason is that it is healthier and faster. It's very convenient to use the air fryer. And then I'm going to give a specific example about cooking chicken in the air fryer. Now, if I didn't use the example of the chicken, you would see that there wouldn't be very much to say here. I would say, I bought this air fryer. It's been really great because it's fast and easy to cook healthy food. If I don't talk about the chicken, there's nothing else there to say. The timer's gonna be going for 30 seconds without me speaking, and that is very bad for your score. Okay, I'm gonna answer the question. It's important that I look at the question and at my notes while I'm answering and keep an eye on that timer as well. I am gonna set the timer for 45 seconds and I'm gonna speak for 45 seconds. I recently bought an air fryer and I've been very happy with this purchase. The main reason I'm happy with the air fryer is that it makes it easier to cook healthy food. Like most people, I eat a lot of chicken and it's much faster in the air fryer. And in the air fryer, you don't need that much oil, so that also makes it a healthier option. So just the other day, I'm making chicken in the air fryer. It takes me about 10 minutes, and the cleanup is super easy, and you don't need to use a lot of oil. Whereas a few weeks ago, before I bought the air fryer, cooking it on the stove requires a lot of oil and a lot of cleanup, and it's just not as healthy that way. Overall, I'm really happy with my purchase, and it makes cooking more convenient. Okay, great. Let's analyze my answer. The most important thing is that my answer is very clear. The answer is the air fryer, the reason that I am enjoying it, and the reason that it's making me happy is that it makes it easier to cook healthy. It's okay if I need to say the word air fryer a few times. It's okay to repeat that because that is my answer. Clarity, being clear, is the most important thing on the speaking section as a whole. Now we're going to answer practice question 2. Same thing. Let's look at what are they asking us. And let's pay attention to the grammar again. They're asking us to choose a famous person who would be enjoyable to have a conversation with, to talk to. And we need to say why. Why would we choose this person? Why do we think it would be enjoyable to talk to them? Now look at the grammar. It says would be enjoyable. This is using would, the second conditional, to talk about an imaginary situation. This is a high level of grammar, and you absolutely need this ability to use second conditional on the TOEFL. You need to be able to use it. It's useful on the speaking, it's useful on the writing section, so you need to be able to use it when you speak and when you write. Remember that second conditional, when we use would, is for imaginary situations, like what would you do if you won the lottery? So we need to use would in our answer here. Here's my Mickey Mouse. I'm going to talk about Elon Musk and say that I want to talk to him about space exploration and his opinions on AI. So again, very, very specific reasons and examples. Okay, let's pretend I just prepared for 15 seconds and then I will speak for 45 seconds with the timer. Personally, I think it would be enjoyable to have a conversation with Elon Musk. Whether you love him or hate him, he is probably one of the most influential people alive today. So, first of all, I would like to talk to him about space exploration. He's a pioneer when it comes to space. I'd like to know if he thinks it's possible that we live on another planet someday, and what planet would that be? And I would also like to talk to him about his opinions on AI. I have read that he has some negative opinions about the future of AI. And now, with how common ChatGPT is, I would really like to know his thoughts on that. I think that would be a really enjoyable conversation with such an influential figure. Okay, let's talk about my answer. Again, clarity is so important. So it is important that I was clear, Elon Musk, and I think it will be enjoyable because I'd like to talk to him about this and this. I'd like to ask him these specific questions. And it's important that I'm also using some second conditional. I would talk to him about space. I would talk to him about AI. So remember that. Task 1, stick with it, keep speaking. You want to fill that 45 seconds and you want to answer the question very clearly. Okay, we're going to do one more practice for task 1. What personality quality do you think is the most important in a good friend? Let's pay attention again to the grammar of this question and what are they asking us? They're asking about a quality in a good friend. What one do we think is important? And why do we think it's important in a friend? And let's look at the word quality. Is quality a noun or an adjective? It's a noun. So our answer should also be a noun. You can at some point use some adjectives, but when you're referring to the quality, you should say a noun. So you should say honesty or kindness or diligence. Those are all nouns. I've done this test with a lot of students, and that's a very common mistake. A mistake like, I think a very important quality in a friend is honest. That's not grammatically correct. When you're filling in the blank of the quality, it should be a noun. I think an important quality in a friend is honesty. Here's my Mickey Mouse. I'm going to say honesty. I'm going to add to that about how trust is built on honesty. And I'm going to give an example of a coworker. I think that the most important quality in a good friend is the quality of honesty. First and foremost, honesty builds trust, and trust is important for any relationship. And if it's a relationship at work, a friendship at work, it also makes me feel more productive. My own experience is an example of this. I had a coworker who was also my friend, and she was always so honest with me in and outside of work. And so, whenever she gave me feedback, I felt like I could really trust her that it was honest feedback and then I could improve. And I don't think it would be possible to improve like that if my friend wasn't honest. In short, honesty and trust go hand in hand. Okay, let's talk about that answer. Again, answering very directly. What is the quality that I think is important in a good friend? It is honesty. I built on that with trust, and then I gave a very specific example of a coworker who was also a friend. Okay, let's review some of the pronunciation from today. These are some key words or maybe some big words that I used today, and I want you to be able to pronounce them. Notice that there's not a lot here on the screen because I really want you to pay attention to what you're hearing and less what you see on the screen. So, first, personally, 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 I would choose Elon Musk. He's one of the most influential people alive today. Influential. Influential. He's one of the most influential people alive today. My own experience is a compelling example of this. Compelling. Experience. My own experience is a compelling example of this. Hi, welcome back. Today we're going to go over task 2 of the speaking. So today you will learn the structure of speaking task 2, learn how to take notes and prepare for task 2, listen to and analyze example answers, and you're going to practice clear pronunciation. All about task 2. I personally love task 2 because students see a lot of improvement with a little bit of work because it's a very structured question. It's one of 3 integrated tasks on the speaking. Question 2, 3, and 4 are all integrated. Integrated means mixed. So these are called integrated because you have to read something and or you have to listen to something and then respond to it. So you're mixing your skills. This is why I like task 2. Task 2 is always about a campus situation. Usually it's about a new plan, policy, or announcement from the university. Sometimes it's a proposal from a student to the university. After you read about the campus situation, you will hear 2 students having a conversation about it. One will have a clear opinion. He or she will agree or disagree with the plan or announcement or proposal. Your job is to summarize the student's opinion. You don't need to insert your opinion. You're just summarizing the student's opinion. And a pro tip, you do not need to mention the other student, the one without a clear opinion. They usually ask some questions or they'll agree with the person who has the opinion, but they're not important. Remember that your job is to summarize the student's opinion, the student who has the clear opinion. How to take notes for task 2. Now, it's very important that you do take notes for all of the speaking section, but especially task 2. And here's a picture of the basic structure for task 2. You want to describe what the policy is, or the proposal, or the announcement. And this can be just a quick sentence that you write while you're reading about the plan. You can also write a few quick words about why they think it will be beneficial. So why do they have this plan, or why are they having this proposal or change? Remember that on the TOEFL, on any section, if there is an audio and a reading that you're responding to, you want to focus on the audio. So this is exactly like that. Your response and your notes should focus on the conversation, on the student who has the opinion. So your notes reflect that there's a lot of space here to write down if the student agrees or disagrees. Here in the notes, it says the student A/D, A for agrees, you circle A, D for disagrees, you circle D. And you try to write as much as you can about their opinion and the reasons they give for holding that opinion so that you can repeat it when it's time to speak. And today we're going to do 3 practice questions like this. I'll show you the script and I'll show you the notes that I take in order to answer the question. Okay, first you're going to see the reading and there's going to be a 45-second timer. You do need to take notes. Remember, I will show you mine shortly. You will have 45 seconds to read this passage. Okay, what did you write down in your notes? Remember, you will see this shortly. I wrote down that the university is planning to potentially build new apartments for students off campus. They think this will be beneficial because parking and community. Now, I'm writing my notes very clearly so that I can show them to you. But really, you are not aiming for perfection in your notes or in the speaking. You need to accomplish a certain set of goals when you speak. And when you take notes, they should be clear to you. But I'm making my notes very, very clear and full. I'm using less abbreviations because I'm trying to share them with you. Now we're going to listen to the conversation between the 2 students, and you need to take notes on the student who agrees or disagrees with this plan.
Now listen to 2 students discussing the article.
I can't believe these plans. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Really? Seemed okay to me, especially the argument about the cars.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, it doesn't matter where students live because they still have to get to class somehow, right? At least if they built new dorms on campus, students would use campus transportation
Instead of their cars. I see what you're getting at. If they live off campus, they're still going to have to drive and park on campus. Might even create more traffic.
Exactly.
Okay. Still, though, the point about students interacting more with people in the community, that doesn't seem to be a bad thing, does it?
But the more time spent off campus, in town, the less time spent on campus. What about all the clubs, shows, discussions, all the campus happenings that just kind of happen. It's important to be on campus to really take advantage of these things. Having a different living experience shouldn't be given up at the expense of not being as much a part of the university community.
Okay, how were your notes? How did it go? Again, I will show you a screenshot of this soon. I wrote that the student disagrees, and then notes about parking and notes about the community factor. I'm going to show you the script now from that conversation. And remember, you cannot see this script on the real test. I'm showing it to you because we are practicing. So I want you to see her opinion. But remember, this is not on the real test. You do not get to read the conversation. You only hear it, and you only hear it one time. So, what you need to get from this conversation is her opinion, and then those two reasons that she gives for holding that opinion, and those details for those two reasons. So, your notes should reflect the words here in bold. It doesn't make sense to me, that means she disagrees. She's saying that for her first reason, the parking, it's not a solution to the parking. People will still have to drive to campus, and parking will still be a problem. And then lastly, she says that the community on campus is important, not just the community of the local town. Here is a picture of my notes. Now remember, I'm writing these so that they're very clear and easy for you to read. But if this were a real test, these would be a lot messier. I would use a lot more abbreviations. And that's what you should do. Your notes should be structured, but grammar and spelling do not matter. Okay, and your notes should be something like this. They might be a little bit different, but you should have what the plan is from the university, why the university thinks that this plan is beneficial, the student's opinion, and the reasons she gives for holding that opinion. Now, I'm going to give you 2 example answers for this one because you can read the notes like this in this order, where you talk about the plan, you talk about the benefits, and then you talk about the student's opinion. That is totally fine and acceptable. Another option, and I'm going to give you both today, another option is to mention the plan, get right into the student's opinion, and then integrate in the reasons that the university thought it was beneficial and why the student does not agree with those reasons. Okay, for this example answer, we're going to pretend that I have spent 30 seconds preparing, and I will speak for 60 seconds. Now, I'm going to give you the option where I talk about the plan, and then the benefits, and then the student's opinion. The university is planning to potentially build new apartments for students off campus. They think this will be beneficial because it will help solve the parking problem that they're having on campus, and it will lead to a sense of community with the students who live off campus. They'll be connected to the local community. The student completely disagrees with this idea. First of all, she says that it won't help with the parking problem. Students who live off campus will still have to drive to classes. And at least if they lived on campus, they could take campus transportation. Secondly, she thinks that the community is just as important on campus as it is off campus. She says students should take advantage of campus community opportunities such as clubs and shows and discussions. She says students shouldn't have to choose between the community on campus and the community off campus. Okay, we will analyze that a little bit more after I give you option 2. Remember, that was option 1 where I was giving you the university's plan and the benefits and then the student's opinion. Now I'm going to give you option 2. Option 2 is the same content, but I'm going to mention the plan. I'm going to get right into the student's opinion, and then I'm going to work in those benefits into her opinion because she disagrees with those potential benefits. The university is planning to potentially build new apartments for students off campus, and the student expresses her opinion. She completely disagrees with this plan. First of all, she says that it won't actually help with parking like the university says that it will. She says that students will still have to drive to class somehow, and at least if they lived on campus, they could take campus transportation. Secondly, she disagrees with the university's idea that community is more important with the local community than it is with the on campus community. She says students shouldn't have to choose between the local community and the on campus community because it's just as important that students enjoy the clubs and shows and discussions offered on campus. And she thinks if they live off campus, they will miss out on all of those on campus opportunities. Now let's analyze both of those answers. They follow that structure. Both of them do. They just use a different order, but they hit all the points. And that's what you need to do in task 2. You need to mention what the policy is, or the plan, or the proposal, in this case, the plan. And you need to cover the student's opinion in detail. The biggest mistake I see on this one, on task 2, is that people spend way too much time explaining the policy and not enough time explaining the student's opinion. So remember, this is a 1-minute speaking task, 1 minute, and you never want to spend more than 20 seconds talking about the reading part. So really focus on the conversation. Okay, I hope that was helpful to see those two options. Now let's move on to another one for task 2. It's good to do a few of these. We're going to do this in a similar way. You're going to read it in 45 seconds. You're going to take notes on the reading, and then you're going to listen to the conversation. You're going to take notes on the conversation. This time I will show you the notes after I've given you the example answer. This time I'm just going to do one example answer, and then we can compare notes. Begin reading and taking notes on the announcement. Okay, listen to the conversation and take notes on this conversation.
Now listen to 2 students discussing the announcement.
Do you believe any of this? It's ridiculous.
What do you mean? Well, it is important to eat healthy foods.
Sure it is. But they're saying yogurt's better for you than an omelet or than hot cereal? I mean, whether something's hot or cold, that shouldn't be the issue. Except maybe on a really cold morning. In that case, which is going to be better for you? A bowl of cold cereal or a nice warm omelet? It's obvious. There's no question.
No, I'm not going to argue with you there.
And this whole thing about saving money.
What about it?
Well, they're actually going to make things worse for us, not better. Because if they start cutting back and we can't get what we want right here on campus, well, we're going to be going off campus and pay off-campus prices. And you know what? That'll be expensive. Even if it's only 2 or 3 mornings a week, it can add up.
Okay, this time we're going to jump right into the example, and I will show you my notes after I've completed the answer. So let's pretend that I prepared for 30 seconds, and then here's the timer for 60, and I will speak for 60 seconds. The university has announced a change that dining services will stop serving hot foods in the university dining halls. They think this will be beneficial because it will be healthier and it will save the students money. The student completely disagrees with this. She says that hot food is not healthier than cold food. She gives the example of a cold morning. A hot omelet would be better on a cold morning. She says there's no question. Secondly, about saving students money, she says that if they can't get what they want on campus, they will go off campus, and they'll actually end up spending more money off campus. She says if they go off campus 2 or 3 times a week to get what they really want, that really adds up and they'll actually end up spending more money that way. She doesn't think hot food is healthier than cold food, and she doesn't think that it will save students money. Okay, let's analyze my answer and the notes. Here's a picture of the notes. Same structure. Remember, you can be messy in your notes, but you want to follow this structure. And this is a pro tip. You can quote audios in the TOEFL. You cannot quote a reading. So if you're talking about the policy, you don't want to quote the policy and use the exact same words that you read. But you can do that with audio. So if you hear the conversation and you want to say, she says no question, those exact words, that's actually good to do with audio. It's not good to do with the reading. It's good to do with audio because it's more impressive. It shows great listening skills. Whereas if you take something from the reading, you're just taking something from the reading. It doesn't show any reading skills. So you can see I wrote down no question, those were her exact words, and that it adds up, those were also her exact words. Again, here is the script. Remember, you will not see the script on the real test. I'm just showing it to you so that you can see where her main points were. And they are here. She says it's ridiculous, which means that she disagrees. And she talked about hot food and cold food not really being healthier than the other. Talked about the omelet. And then she talked about the price and how students will go off campus. Okay, we have one more to do for task 2 today. This one, we're just going to do it all the way through. So you have 45 seconds to read. Remember to take notes. It's so important that you participate in these lessons. Begin reading now. Now we're going to listen to the conversation and again, take notes. It's super important that you take notes.
Now listen to two students discussing the letter.
I totally disagree with Tim's proposal.
Why?
Well, look, Tim's my friend, but he's not your typical student. He stays up late partying every night, weeknights too.
If he parties every night, no wonder he can't pay attention.
Yes, and most students aren't like that. They come to class prepared and rested, and they can concentrate.
So you're saying the problem is really Tim?
Yes, he was in one of my classes last year, and whenever I looked at him, he was actually sleeping.
I guess if he's sleeping, he can't really know what's happening, what other people in class are doing.
Right. And you want to know what does happen in that last hour of seminar? In a lot of seminars that I've been in, that's when things get interesting.
Really?
Yes, that's usually when students get really involved in the discussion and start exchanging important ideas. And if the history department actually did what Tim suggests, well, if they did that, what would happen is you'd lose what might be the most worthwhile part of a seminar.
I'm going to give you the answer. I'm going to give you the example here. Let's pretend that I have been preparing for 30 seconds. You really want to use that preparation time too. Preparation of 30 seconds is quite a lot of time. You can go through your notes mentally, kind of speaking out loud to yourself and see if you get caught anywhere. Do you get stuck? And then you want to fix those mistakes. Add to your notes, make them clearer for you so you're more prepared. Here's the timer for 60 seconds. A student, Tim, has made a proposal that history seminars should be shorter. The woman completely disagrees with Tim's proposal. In the proposal, Tim says that most students can't concentrate for 3 hours. He's suggesting maybe 2 hours. But the woman says that she knows Tim, and although he's her friend, she knows that he parties a lot, and so he actually sleeps sometimes in class. She says that she had a class with him last year, and every time she looked over at him, he was sleeping. And according to her, most students aren't like that. Most students come rested and ready to concentrate to the history seminars. And secondly, she says the last hour of history seminars is usually the most useful and most interesting. So if they were to cut them down from 3 hours to 2 hours, she says that they would be missing out on the best part of the history seminars. Okay, let's analyze that answer. You can read the script of my answer in the study guide, as you can with all of the example answers. This is a tough one whenever there's a proposal because you have so many pronouns. He and him and her and she, and they're both students. And so it's good to use Tim's name because we do have Tim's name. They gave it to us. That makes things a little bit easier if we do refer to him sometimes as Tim. And sometimes I refer to her as the woman and not just the student so that I can be clear about who I'm talking about. Whenever you see a proposal, you're going to want to be very clear about who you're talking about. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but this is how messy my notes are when I'm not sharing them with you. The structure is there, but the spelling is a mess. Abbreviations and symbols everywhere, but that's actually what we want. Remember, we're not really going for perfection. You can get a 29 out of 30 or even a 30 out of 30 with a few small mistakes. And that's true on any section. Let's do some pronunciation practice. These are phrases from today's lesson. Remember, there's not a lot on the screen because I really want you to focus on what you're hearing. Repeat after me. The university has a new plan. The university has a new plan. The university has a new plan to build off-campus housing. The student has proposed that. The student has proposed that. The student has proposed that history seminars be shorter. A student has made a proposal. A student has made a proposal that history seminars should be shorter. They think this will be beneficial because they think this will be beneficial because beneficial. They think this will be beneficial because it will save students money. The student agrees. The student agrees. When we make this E sound, our mouth is like a smile, like a rectangular smile. Agrees. Like in my name, Lindsay agrees. The student agrees. The student completely agrees. The student disagrees. Disagrees. The student completely disagrees. Hi, welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to go over task 3 of the speaking section. You're going to learn the structure, you're going to learn how to take notes, you're going to listen to and analyze example answers and sometimes the script of the audio, and you're going to practice clear pronunciation. So let's get started. All about task 3. It's one of 3 integrated questions on the speaking section. Remember that task 2, 3, and 4 are all called integrated tasks because it's not just the skill of speaking, it's also the skill of reading and listening. So it's called integrated because integrated means mixed, and you're mixing your skills. You will read a short passage on an academic subject, then listen to a lecture on the same topic, and the lecturer is going to give examples of that academic topic. The passage is very short, it's about a paragraph. And the lecture is also very short, it's about a minute and a half. Remember that on any part of the TOEFL where there is a reading part and a listening part, like task 2 and 3 in the speaking section and the integrated writing in the writing section, your response should focus mainly on the audio part. That is more impressive, that shows better listening skills. So that's what we're going to practice today. We're going to mention the reading, but our answer is mostly going to focus on what we heard from the lecture. Your job is to summarize the reading and explain the examples. No opinion necessary. You're just summarizing what you read and listened to. How to take notes for task 3. This is the basic structure. The reading discusses blank, which is blank. You want to define what it was very quickly in just this one quick sentence. You're going to be writing these notes as you read. You will have 45 seconds to read. Then you want to explain the example. So the professor gives an example of this. He or she explains, and then you have a lot of space here in your notes to write down what the professor explained. Now remember, this is just a template. You can change this a little bit as you need. I'm going to use some different sentences today instead of the professor gives an example of this. I'm going to show you some variety. Also, you can change the word discusses. It's very hard for people to pronounce the word discusses. So maybe instead of discusses, you can say the reading is about. That's totally fine. Remember that a template like this is just a guide. It's just a suggestion. You just want to keep that basic structure, but you can change the words. Okay, we're going to get started. We're going to do 3 practice questions that are all task 3. Just like in previous speaking lessons, we're going to go through this a little bit slowly at first and then pick up the pace. We're going to go faster at the end with the last one. So for this one, I'm going to show you the script right after we hear the lecture. And remember that you cannot see the script on the real test. I'm only showing you the script so that we can analyze it together. So first, you're going to read this passage and you have 45 seconds to read. Okay, that was 45 seconds, and we're going to analyze what you have written down. What have you written down in your notes? You should use the title if you can. So I wrote, and you will see this, the reading discusses actor observer effect. So I'm using that title, and then I'm defining what is that? What is that actor observer effect? If you look at the passage, it clearly defines it. You need to very quickly synthesize that. That means you really need to understand it. And you have to do so very quickly in 45 seconds. So, what is the actor observer effect? It says that people account for their own behavior differently from how they account for the behavior of others. So, I judge myself differently than I judge other people. Even if your notes aren't perfect at this point, you need to understand the basics of that so that you're ready to listen to the lecture. The lecture is going to give us an example of this actor observer effect. So we need to know what it is so that we know what we're listening for in the lecture. Now let's listen to the lecture. Again, take notes. You're going to see my notes later, but you should be actively participating in this lesson by taking notes. So, what is the example and how does it illustrate the actor observer effect?
Now listen to part of a lecture in a psychology class.
So we encounter this in life all the time, but many of us are unaware that we do this, even psychologists who study it, like me. For example, the other day I was at the store and I was getting in line to buy something. But just before I was actually in line, some guy comes out of nowhere and cuts right in front of me. Well, I was really annoyed and thought, that was rude. I assumed he was just a selfish, inconsiderate person, when in fact I had no idea why he cut in line in front of me, or whether he even realized he was doing it. Maybe he didn't think I was actually in line yet. But my immediate reaction was to assume he was a selfish or rude person. Okay, so a few days after that, I was at the store again, only this time I was in a real hurry. I was late for an important meeting, and I was frustrated that everything was taking so long. And what's worse, all the checkout lines were long, and it seemed like everyone was moving so slowly. But then I saw a slightly shorter line. But some woman with a lot of stuff to buy was walking toward it, so I basically ran to get there first before her. And, well, I did. Now, I didn't think of myself as a bad or rude person for doing this. I had an important meeting to get to. I was in a hurry, so, I had done nothing wrong.
Okay, we're going to analyze the script. You can only see the script because we are practicing. You cannot see the script on the real test for the speaking section, so keep that in mind. What were the key points from the example? First, they jump right into the example. That's why you have to do the reading and really understand it quickly, because this starts, so we encounter this in life all the time. What is this? This is the actor-observer effect. And then there's the example of the grocery store. And it's a two-part example because it's one day at a grocery store and then him at the grocery store at another day. The first time somebody cuts the line and he thinks that must be a very rude and selfish person. The next time he cuts the line because he's in a hurry and he doesn't think of himself as a rude and selfish person. So that is the gist of it. That's the most important part that your answer needs to reflect. It needs to have that in it. Here are my notes that I'm going to use to give you the answer. Remember that I am writing as clearly as possible so that I can show you these notes. You might not have so many full sentences in your notes. That's okay, as long as I have the important stuff. And the important stuff is actor-observer effect. What is it? And then the two parts of the professor's example and how do they illustrate the actor-observer effect. Now I'm going to give you the example answer. Let's pretend that I have prepared for 30 seconds. Remember that preparation time is very important. You really want to analyze your notes before you speak in that preparation time to make sure that they are ready to go and that you're ready to go. Deep breath, 60 seconds. Here's the timer. The reading discusses actor-observer effect, which is when people judge other people's behavior differently from their own. The professor gives a personal example of this. He says that he was at the store the other day and somebody cut the line in front of him and he thought, how rude. He assumed that the person who cut the line was a selfish and bad person. A few days later at the store again, he was in a hurry for an important meeting. He was running late and the grocery store was really busy. The lines were long. The lines were moving very slowly, and he had to get to this important meeting. So he ran to get in line ahead of a woman who had a lot of stuff and basically cut the line, just like that person did to him the other day. And this time, when he cut the line, he did not think of himself as a rude or bad person because he had a reason. He had to get to that important meeting. Okay, let's analyze my answer. Just like we saw in the notes and the script here, these were the main points I needed to hit. I needed to say these things, and I said them. That's called task achievement in your score. That's when you achieve the task. So that's a really important part of the speaking section with all of the tasks, 1 through 4. They do mark you on grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary. They also mark you on task achievement. Did you answer the question? Did you fully answer the question? So I did fully answer the question because I hit all of these points. Okay, very good. We're going to do another one. And this time we're going to pick up the pace a little bit. We're going to go a little bit faster. We're going to look at the script after I give you the example answer. And please remember to take notes as we do this. It's so important that you participate in this lesson. Remember to use the title and then define what cognitive dissonance is in your notes. You have 45 seconds to read. We're going to jump right into the audio and listen to the lecture. You will see my notes after this lecture. Please take your own notes.
Now listen to part of a lecture about this topic in a sociology class.
This is a true story from my own life. In my first year in high school, I was addicted to video games. I played them all the time, and I wasn't studying enough. I was failing chemistry. That was my hardest class. So this was a conflict for me because I wanted a good job when I grew up, and I knew that if you want a good career, you got to do well in school. But I just couldn't give up video games. I was completely torn. And my solution was to change my perspective. See, the only class I was doing really badly in was chemistry. In the others, I was okay. So I asked myself if I wanted to be a chemist when I grew up. And the fact is, I didn't. I was pretty sure I wanted to be a sociologist. So I told myself my chemistry class didn't matter, because sociologists don't really need to know chemistry. In other words, I changed my understanding of what it meant to do well in school. I reinterpreted my situation. I used to think that doing well in school meant doing well in all my classes, but now I decided that succeeding in school meant only doing well in the classes that related directly to my future career. I eliminated the conflict, at least in my mind.
Okay, here are my notes that I'm going to use to give you the example answer. So I need to explain what cognitive dissonance is. And again, there are 2 parts to the example. There's the problem, which was that he was addicted to video games, and the solution, which is that he changed the way he thought about being successful. Now, let's look at the notes for what cognitive dissonance is. Notice that I'm using my own wording. I'm not just directly taking the definition from the text. Remember, you can take words directly from an audio. You cannot take words directly from something that you're reading. That's just stealing. So I had to reword it. I had to use synonyms or my own wording in order to describe what cognitive dissonance is. So I use the word align, and align means to match up. I said that cognitive dissonance is when a person's beliefs do not align with their actions. I'm going to give you the example answer, and then we will look at the script from the lecture as we analyze the example answer. The reading discusses cognitive dissonance, which is when a person's beliefs don't align with their actions. There's a contradiction between what they think they should do and what they do. The professor tells a story from his life that illustrates cognitive dissonance. He says that he used to play video games all the time, and he was not studying because he could not stop playing video games. He believed that in order to have a successful career, he needed to do well in school, but he just could not stop playing video games, and his grades were failing. So his solution was to change his perspective. The only class he was struggling in was chemistry, and he was pretty sure he wanted to be a sociologist, and he didn't need chemistry in order to be a sociologist. So he changed his beliefs about what it means to be successful And in that way, he created a solution to his problem. This example illustrates cognitive dissonance. Okay, we're going to look at the script and we're going to analyze my answer. Like I said, I was going to change the notes a little bit today. Instead of just saying the professor gives an example of this every time, I said the professor tells a story from his life. Okay, we're going to practice that pronunciation at the end of this lesson. My answer is structured just like my notes are structured. Let's look at the notes again. Even if I didn't have full sentences here, I am reading through my notes and it keeps my answer organized. Let's look at the script again. What are the most important parts here that I included in my answer? Video games, the fact that it was a problem for him, and the solution to change his perspective. Okay, great job. We have one more practice question for today's lesson for task 3. This time you will see the script after you've heard the example answer and no pictures of the notes. Take notes as we read and as we listen. You have 45 seconds to read. Begin reading now. Listen to the lecture on the same topic.
Now listen to part of a talk in a sociology class. The professor is discussing audience effects.
Okay, so we said that the way we interact with others has an impact on our behavior. In fact, there's some interesting research to suggest that in one type of interaction, when we're being observed, specifically when we know we're being watched as we perform some activity, we tend to increase the speed at which we perform that activity. In one study, college students were asked to each put on a pair of shoes with laces they would have to tie. Now, one group of students was told that they would be observed. The second group, however, didn't know they were being observed. The students who were aware that they were being watched actually tied their shoes much faster than the students who thought they were alone. Other studies confirm the same is true even when we're learning new activities. Let's say someone is learning a new task, for example, learning how to type. When they're conscious of being observed, they'll likely begin typing at a much faster rate than they would if they were alone. But, and this is interesting, the study also showed that certain common behavior, things people typically do, like making mistakes when you're learning something new, that behavior pattern will also increase. So in other words, when we're learning to type and we know we're being watched, we'll type faster, but we'll also make more mistakes.
Okay, let's pretend there was a timer for 30 seconds. I prepared. I really cleaned up my notes and kept them organized in that 30 seconds. And now I will speak for 60 seconds answering this question. The reading discusses social interaction, specifically the audience effect, which is when a person changes their behavior when they think that there is an audience watching them. The professor gives a few examples of this. He cites a study where people were divided into 2 groups and assigned the task of tying their shoes. One group knew that they were being observed and another group did not. The group that knew that they were being observed would tie their shoes at a much faster rate. They would do the task much faster. He gives another example of learning to type. If a person is learning to type and they know that they're being watched, they will type much faster than if they were not being watched. And not only will they type faster, but they will make a lot more mistakes. Both of these examples of tying shoes and learning to type are examples of audience effect. Okay, let's analyze the answer. This time I did not use the title from the reading passage. Let's look back on that. The title is social interaction, and I didn't just say that the reading discusses social interaction. I said it discusses social interaction, specifically the audience effect. How did I know I should do that? He mentions it in the lecture, and then it is the question. Really pay attention to the question. Your answer should be directly answering this question. And they asked about audience effect, not specifically social interaction. That's it for the practice questions. Now we're going to practice pronunciation. Repeat. The reading discusses. The reading discusses. Discusses. The reading discusses cognitive dissonance. The reading discusses cognitive dissonance. And here's an easier one. The reading is about cognitive dissonance. The reading is about cognitive dissonance. The professor gives an example of this. Example. The professor gives an example of this. The professor tells a story from his life. The professor tells a story from his life. The professor tells a story from his life that illustrates cognitive dissonance. Illustrates. The professor tells a story from his life that illustrates cognitive dissonance. Hi, today we have our last lesson of the speaking section, the last task of the speaking, task number 4. There are 4 questions, 4 tasks. So this is the last one. After this, we will jump into a lot of practice tests and example practice tests. So today, as usual, you will learn the structure of speaking task 4, learn how to take notes and prepare for task 4. You will listen to and analyze example answers, and you will practice clear pronunciation. All about task 4. It's one of 3 integrated questions. Remember, 2, 3, and 4 are all integrated because you're integrating your skills. You have to listen to something in task 4 and then respond to it. So you're not just speaking, you're also listening. It is the last question of the speaking section. You will listen to a short lecture on an academic subject, and it is your job to summarize the lecture. Of course, take notes while you listen. You will also have that preparation time. For task number 4, you have 20 seconds to prepare. The structure is very basic for task 4 because you're just taking notes on everything she says in the lecture. You can start with something like, the professor is discussing. After we listen to this lecture, you're going to look at the script. Remember, we only look at the script when we're practicing. You do not see the script on the real test. Then you'll see the example notes that I will use to give you the example answer.
Now listen to part of a talk in an economics class.
So, let's talk about money. What is money? Well, typically people think of coins and paper bills as money, but that's using a somewhat narrow definition of the term. A broad definition is this. Money is anything that people can use to make purchases with. Since many things can be used to make purchases, money can have many different forms. Certainly, coins and bills are one form of money. People exchange goods and services for coins or paper bills, and they use this money, these bills, to obtain other goods and services. For example, you might give a taxi driver $5 to purchase a ride in his taxi, and he in turn gives the $5 to a farmer to buy some vegetables. But as I said, coins and bills aren't the only form of money under this broad definition. Some societies make use of a barter system. Basically, in a barter system, people exchange goods and services directly for other goods and services. The taxi driver, for example, might give a ride to a farmer in exchange for some vegetables. Since the vegetables are used to pay for a service, by our broad definition, the vegetables are used in barter as a form of money. Now, as I mentioned, there's also a second, a narrower definition of money. In the United States, only coins and bills are legal tender, meaning that by law, a seller must accept them as payment. The taxi driver must accept coins or bills as payment for a taxi ride, okay? But in the U.S., the taxi driver is not required to accept vegetables in exchange for a ride. So a narrower definition of money might be whatever is legal tender in a society, whatever has to be accepted as payment.
Okay, let's look at the script. What are the key points that you need to have in your notes from this script? In your notes, you need to know what this lecture is about. This lecture is about the definition of money. One of the first things she says, what is money? The other things you need to have in your notes here, the broad definition of money and the narrow definition of money. Here are the example notes that I'm going to use in my answer. So I have notes on the broad definition and notes on the narrow definition. Your notes might be a little bit different, but they should have this basic information, the two definitions of money and what the example of the taxi driver and the vegetable illustrates. Okay, I'm going to speak for 60 seconds, as if I have prepared for 20. The professor is discussing money. She gives two definitions of what money is. She gives one broad definition and one narrow definition. The broad definition of money is anything people can use to make purchases with. So she says, of course, bills and coins are money under this type of definition. But some societies use barter systems where you trade things. In that kind of society, a vegetable would also fall under this broad definition. If a taxi driver drives you to your destination, in a barter society, they could accept vegetables as payment. She gives a second, more narrow definition of money, that it is anything that is accepted as legal tender. For example, the U.S. does not use a barter system, so a taxi driver is not required to accept a vegetable in exchange for his service. So under this narrow definition, coins and bills are, of course, money, but under this definition, vegetables would not be considered money. Let's go back to the script and analyze my answer. I covered all the points in bold, and I explained what the example of the vegetable illustrates. It shows that one definition includes the vegetable and one definition does not include the vegetable. You did it. You did the whole section of this mini course. Now YouTube thinks that you'd like this video, so go ahead and check it out.